All right. Welcome back to Currency 365. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about reparations because there's Dan has been. I mean, Dan, if you're watching this, hopefully you're watching this video because I really made the video just to respond to Dan because I just didn't feel like typing anymore on Patreon Currency 365. Now Dan has expressed himself on Telegram as well, and he got into it with a couple of people on the Telegram group weeks ago. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I think Dan remembers that. Everybody that's on Telegram remembers that. I mean, people they were literally going at it about reparations for literally all day on Telegram a couple of weeks back, and I always find it interesting because like, you got people that care so much about other race of people, reparations or fight, um, for reparations. And I always find it interesting. Because I even I even told Dan, I wonder if you would be doing, I wonder what you thought about when the Jews got their reparations. I wonder how you were acting when the Native Americans got the reparations. I wonder how you were acting when all the other groups of people and out there were getting their reparations. Were you this amped? Were you this hyped? Were you this angered and angry about reparations, or is it because it's African Americans? Or maybe it's because you're misguided, and one of the things I wanted to let Dan know and others know that are angry about reparations for African Americans because of slavery is that one thing that a lot of them, the people that are angry about reparations, is they actually believe that African Americans are going to be able to take their land that they currently own. And that is the biggest lie and deception or misinformation that I've ever heard in my life. And so, if you're listening to this, Dan, and others that are angry about African Americans receiving reparations because you believe that they're going to be, African Americans are going to be able to take your land, I don't know who told you that, but that's not going to happen. Okay. Yes, Dr. Claude Anderson was on the Breakfast Club, and he did point out that there was a second constitution for African Americans to be able to have 40 acres and a mule and things like that. But African Americans don't need to steal or take your land to do that. There's plenty of land in America that is either vacant. There's plenty of land in America that is untouched. You know how big America is, by the way, right? You can literally drive 100 miles and see like one or two people in America, and especially in the Midwest and just the mid part of America, the heartland of America. There's nobody that lives in those areas. And so no one is stealing your land or stealing your home to give African Americans reparations. A matter of fact, Dan and others that are so angry about reparations, many African Americans are not even going to want land. They're just going to want people, they're just going to want a check or free education, or something else. Many African Americans are happy where they live. If you go up to an African American community and say, "Hey, you guys now can steal our land here in the countryside and in southern Tennessee," the African Americans will look at you and say, no, I think we're fine here in our hood. we don't need to steal land. Okay? So many African Americans are literally just fine with where they live. African Americans don't go around stealing. Okay, so the fact that people literally think that reparations is gonna be something that you steal from people is absolutely ludicrous. And so I see now why they're so angry about reparations, because they have been misguided and misinformed, that they literally think their government, the United States of American government, is going to remove you out of your own home and land and give it to an African American. Oh boy, that's not going to happen. Okay. And when the African Americans do get their reparations, it's probably going to be, debt free, free schooling, free education, maybe, partial checks. Not sure how much money that is, because no one knows how much money you can put on torture and, and slavery and inhumane activity, and all the other things that came along with slavery and Jim Crow and hanging um, hanging African Americans from trees. Um, I wonder where they got that from. Hanging Yeshua, maybe. Okay. um, but you know, and then all the other things that happened to African Americans during slavery, like rape and whippings in front of their own family members and friends, rape in front of own families and friends, and all of the other humane things. I mean, you want to talk about? There's other things we can't even probably discuss on YouTube that were so inhumane during the timing of slavery, and that has not been paid back to the African American community yet. But the Native Americans got their reparations, the Jews got theirs, and so many other groups have received their. But no one really, when you look at the details, has gone through that 400-year period of inhumane torture as the African Americans did in America. Now there have been other slavery people. People have been enslaved in Europe and Africa and South America and the European. I mean, not the European, but the Middle Eastern countries had slave trades and still have them today, right? And so all the people that have been done wrong by this inhumane activity should be able to receive reparations regardless of their skin color. Because I think one of the things is like, oh, you guys want African American reparations, but who said we didn't? We're not going to cheer you on for your reparations. Who's ever said that African Americans aren't going to be cheering for Caucasians or Italians or Armenians or anybody else's reparations? Maybe Mexicans are going to ask for reparations in the future. We're going to be cheering them on. We're going to cheer on anybody who goes after reparations for wrongdoing. It doesn't matter what color you are. So I think that's another thing. That's another myth out there that you guys just want for yourselves. And what about everybody else? What about the other groups? Well, we're cheering on the other groups of people as well for their reparations for their wrongdoing. It doesn't matter what color they are. Um, but I just had to put that out there because some people are really, really angry because they actually believe their own government is going to remove them from their land and give it to an African American. I don't know. I don't know where you got that information from, but that is completely false. And even if that was the case, how many African Americans do you know would accept that in the first place? When have you seen African Americans just going around just saying, "Oh, well, government told me we can take this land. I'm going to steal this land from you, and your family and your little children and kids are no longer going to have a place to live." When have you seen African Americans do that ever? African Americans are in the cities and hoods, and some are in the suburbs, and they love being part of their own communities. They don't go out stealing land. Okay, they've never done that, and many of them would reject that, and they would instead accept a check from the government or free education. in my opinion, for reparations, or maybe a combination of free education, free college with a check and free health care. Those types of things could go together. There's so many different options that they can present, that the African American board, and the people who are running the African American reparations could present to Donald Trump and the American government. Okay, it could be each African American receives $1,000 and free health care, and what do you call it, and free college tuition or free education or something like that. There's different ways to do it, or they could bring the money up and then maybe do with free healthcare, or maybe just the money, or maybe just the healthcare, or maybe school and healthcare. There's so many different options for reparations, that they can do. But let's just spell the rumors and the myth, and because African Americans, even if the government offered African Americans homes of other people, citizens in America, 99% of them will turn that down and say, I'm not stealing somebody's house, because African Americans don't think like that. Okay, and imagine, hey, here's a house in southern Mississippi. Now you're one African American family around people that don't look like you. Would they want that, or would they want to stay in their cities and hoods? They would want to stay in their cities and hoods. Okay, and they would offer something else for reparations. So let's just dismiss that altogether. So if that's what you thought that what the African Americans were going to receive for reparations, then I don't know who told you that. Yes, the Constitution, the second Constitution that Dr. Claude Anderson did say was supposed to be for African Americans, 40 acres and a mule, but that it just never happened. It never happened, and that was written a long time ago. That just never happened, and many African Americans wouldn't even want that anyways. They would actually want a check or free education or free healthcare instead, because they really don't. African Americans, for some reason, don't really value land like that. They would like quick, they would like you to cut the check, okay, instead, right? And so they would take a check and said, but also remember, there is a lot of free land and available land in America. There's a lot of vacant homes in America. So even if they did get land, even if the African Americans got land, they wouldn't need to take your land. There's millions of vacant homes in America right now. There's lots of vacant land in America. I remember watching the video, the Strad Man. Shout out to the Strad Man, and he was going through his Utah, and there's land all over for sale in Utah. There's vacant land, there's vacant homes, there's, you know what I mean, all throughout America. There's vacant property and vacant homes and land. So they wouldn't need to steal your land and your home and your property. We wouldn't even accept that in the first place, because we love America. You know what I mean? Like, we love the citizens of America. We wouldn't do that to people in America. Are you kidding me? How do you sleep at night knowing you did that? Now people are going to say, "Wait a minute, how did the Caucasians sleep at night for doing that to people, to the Native Americans and the Africans and the Mexicans?" I don't know that question. I can't answer that for you if that's what you're asking me. Okay, because that's a legitimate question, but the people that are living today did not do that, so so we can't really ask them, can we? Um, but the people will say, well, how do the elites sleep at night? How for invading Africa and stealing all the resources out of Africa and owning a lot of the land and companies in Africa. how do they sleep at night knowing that when you're demonic and you're evil, then you don't really care. You don't really have a godly conscience because you don't care. And many of those people aren't even human, anyways. So they don't think like us. Many of them are fallen angels, reptilians, or something else, and so we don't even need to go into that or think about that. But they don't function in a godly manner anyways. Right, so they don't have their subconscious and their conscience and their mental capacity is not the same as our heavenly ones, because we were created by the Father, and many of them were not. And so they're or maybe they were, but they were created in a different type of species. So they have different type of mentality. um but yeah, we don't need to talk about that. We don't need to get into that, right? Because that puts us off course of what we're talking about, reparations. So yeah, to spell the rumor, African Americans aren't going to be able to. The government are not going to give African Americans your land and your property. That's just not going to happen. Then it doesn't need to happen because there's so much land and property that is vacant in America that if an African American wanted land and property for reparations, there's millions of properties that are going to be open. And by the way, more property is going to be open here very soon because the real estate bubble is about to burst, and it's going to start in California. So by the time African Americans receive reparations, there's going to be millions and millions upon millions of vacant homes and land that people need to, get into and rebuild and start their new home ownership. So it's sad that California and New York and Massachusetts and all these other places have risen the prices of homes so high that people are now having to spend $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. Matter of fact, in San Francisco, $3,000 might only get you a studio. You might need $4,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. Why would you ever pay something like that? Right? And so it's gotten to the point where it is absolutely outrageous, and the bubble of the real estate market needs to burst, and it's going to start in California, and it's going to trickle to the other states around the world, around America, and things are going to get back to normal, where in 2020 a one bedroom apartment, the average one bedroom apartment in America should be $1,000 in 2020. I even think that's too high. I think a one bedroom apartment in America should be $500. But that's just me, you know what I mean? But an average apartment, a one bedroom apartment in America it should be in 2020 between $500 to $1,000, not $3,000 to $4,000, right? In California. Now, many other places, a one bedroom apartment is about $1,300 to $1,500, which is still way too high, in my opinion, for 2020. I think a normal one bedroom apartment should be between $5,000 to $1,000. That's it. Five on the normal basic side, and a little bit more the luxurious one bedroom apartment should be at $1,000 max. That's it. And so I'm hoping when this bubble bursts in the real estate, we get back to common sense. Okay, and we get back to common sense prices as well. And yeah, that's about it. And for me personally, as I told Dan and others, I've been blessed. I'm blessed by the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and they're about to take me to levels that you can't even imagine. Okay, and so for me personally, I don't need reparations. I'm not calling for myself to receive any reparations, but I'll be there in support for everybody that wants reparations. I'm for reparations for any group of people that have been done wrong to, point blank and simple. And that's just me. And I'm pretty sure, Dan, if your people were done wrong, you would also be wanting reparations. Now, the key part was that Dan thought that we're gonna steal their land. or we're going to take their land, and that's just incorrect. Okay, that Constitution was long time ago, and at that point, there was all of America was available for the African Americans to get their 40 acres and mule, and even today a lot of the land is still available, right? A lot of vacant homes. There's millions of vacant homes that they can place African Americans in, right? There's millions of acres of land in America that is unclaimed. So it's not like we can't. There isn't land out there for the ones that actually want land. But I think that I think that when the reparations do come about for African Americans, it's going to be a choice. I think they're going to have choices between free health care, maybe a check, maybe a $10,000 check if you want that, or you can get free health care for the rest of your life, or you can get free college and free education all the way up to your PhD, or you can get land, right? Or you can get a vacant home. You're not going to take somebody's property, but you're going to get a vacant property. If you want to, maybe rebuild it or something like that. I think there's going to be options for the African Americans once reparations come. But once again, the government is not going to be just removing people out of their homes and saying this now belongs to an African American because of reparations. That will never happen, in my opinion, because it doesn't need to happen because there's so many vacant homes in America, and there's so many unclaimed land right in this area right here. There's literally millions of homes and millions of acre of land unclaimed right in the heartland of America. And so if the African Americans wanted to go out there and set up a country townhouse or farm or barn or something, right? And get country on them, then hey, that's what they pick. That's what they pick. But most of them are going to pick. They're going to tell them to cut the check or free healthcare or free school before they pick land. But anyways, I thought that I wanted to clear that up, and I hope you guys understand that's not going to. African Americans are not going to steal people's land and property, and that is a myth or a lie or a deception. I don't know where that came from, and I think that has angered a lot of Caucasians and other groups out there, and thinking that's going to be the case, and that is not going to be the case at all. And even if it was, African Americans would turn that down really quickly because African Americans don't go around stealing land and stealing property. We don't do that. Okay. So, anyways, peace out. God bless. And I'm here for any group that wants reparations, and because of a inhumane practice or operation on their people, I'm all for it, And but as long as like Dan said, you're not taking innocent people's properties and things like that. We don't stand for that. Okay, like the Native Americans got their own, casinos, and they got they got land in North Dakota, South Dakota, and I'm guessing Wisconsin areas, and then they also got casinos and other things like that, and they didn't have to steal anybody's land and property. So that would be the same thing for African Americans. Just take the vacant homes. There's millions of them in America if that's what you want as reparations. Peace out. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video. And Dan, I'm hoping that cleared things up. God bless you, my brother. I don't know why you're so angry about reparations, but I see that it's because maybe you were misinformed of thinking your land would be taken from you, and we do not allow that, and we will not allow that in Yeshua's mighty name. Peace out, God bless, and I'll see you all in the next video.